clear he's not the person Donnie's seeking. After some work, Frank takes a break at the construction site and overhears Lance and his buddy, Paulie, discussing a heist on a poker game guarded by the Natchi crime family. When they catch wind that Frank has heard their conversation, they warn him to stay out of it. Frank remains silent, brushing off their threats. Before they can escalate, their attention shifts to a friend who's injured at the site. Rather than lending a hand, Frank simply looks away. With their friends sidelined due to injury, Paulie and Lance enlist Donnie for their heist. Eager for some extra cash, Donnie joins the duo and they head to the location of the poker game.
Let's boogaloo.
Get up, come on, move your ass! Nobody move! Nobody!
You boys should leave while you can.
Shut up, Beastball. You get what he got.
We're all dead.
Come on, let's go. Let's go!
You really screwed this up, Donald.
No!
Now exposed, Donnie becomes a target for the Natchez men who can easily track him down. Frustrated at Donnie for jeopardizing their plans, Lance and Paulie unleash their anger, beating him mercilessly. Realizing that the nutty gangsters will sooner or later find them, they decide to end Donnie's life so he cannot give up their names. Donnie attempts to fight back, but the trio overpowers him, tossing him into the concrete mix. Just as Lance prepares to finish the job, Frank appears behind them. He demands Lance shut off the mixer, but when Lance refuses, a brawl ensues.
Tonight just gets better and better. Please, just let me go, man. Take the money. Take the money, man. No!
Dog.
Lanello's in Little Italy.
I'm gonna find a home for this.
No! Help!
No one sleeps until we get these guys. Start with this kid, Donald Chavez. Christ.
Play War Thunder now. Join millions of players across the globe in massive battles on tanks, aircraft, and helicopters in the most extensive vehicle combat game ever made. Take control over the battlefield in ground vehicles, rain down rocket volleys in helicopters, dogfight your enemies in aircraft, and bomb whatever is left into the dust. Play on more than 1,500 authentic military vehicles from early World War II to present day. Experience the transition from historic biplane fighters and iconic World War II tanks to supersonic jets and modern battle tanks fighting alongside attack helicopters. Upgrade your vehicles, customize their appearance, and level up your crew to become the best commander on the battlefield. Download War Thunder now for free on warthunder.com, your PS4 or Xbox One.
You want to play? Let's play. Excusez-moi. I know how to make an entrance. Time to say goodbye.
I agree with you showing up on my screen.
Frank emerges from the shadows and swiftly takes down the leader with a gunshot. On the other hand, there's Special Agent Dinah Madani. She's back in New York City after a stint in Afghanistan. Her primary focus is the murder of her partner, Zubair, an Afghan national police officer. Dinah suspects that U.S. soldiers were involved in heroin trafficking, and when Zubair uncovered it, they silenced him. She tries convincing Special Agent in charge Carson Wolf, but he dismisses the case as off-limits. Undeterred, Dinah turns to her new partner, Sam Stein, for assistance. She urges him to dig into files about Colonel Schoonover, the explosion and drug bust at the docks last year, and everything related to one of Schoonover's men, Frank Castle. Although Sam believes the Punisher is dead, Dinah finds it hard to believe that Frank and Schoonover died within New York City limits, just 20 miles from each other. Meanwhile, as Frank exits the basement, an unidentified person is seen analyzing gait recognition on camera footage of Frank. The man identifies himself as Micro and drops Frank's real name, revealing he knows Frank is alive. During their conversation, Frank discovers that Microchip is the one who anonymously left a disc at his house, containing footage of Zubair being killed by the US Army. Frank proposes a face-to-face meeting, but Microchip insists that Frank must first recognize they're not enemies. Observing a light from a nearby building, Frank swiftly heads to the rooftop. Upon investigation, he finds a mirror and a flashlight creating the beam of light. Worried, Frank pays a visit to his friend, Curtis Hoyle, a former Navy corpsman and insurance salesman, the only person aware of his survival. Frank confides in him about Micro and discloses that Micro claims to possess crucial answers. Micro's sudden re-entry into his life prompts Frank to reflect on whether his family met their demise due to his own mistakes. Now, Frank believes that Micro might hold the key to unraveling these questions. In his quest for information on Micro, Frank turns to his trusted friend and lawyer, Karen Page. He briefs her on Micro's existence and seeks her assistance in locating the mysterious figure. Micro hinted that he's not the only ghost in New York, implying he also faked his death. Armed with Micro's name, Frank locates his residence and orchestrates a plan. He intentionally places himself in front of Micro's wife, Sarah's car, and pretends to get injured. To make it look real, he uses a razor to lacerate his forehead. Distraught, Sarah invites him inside to tend to his wound. Amid their conversation, Sarah recounts her husband's death. Unbeknownst to Sarah, Micro has strategically placed hidden cameras throughout the house to keep tabs on his family. Witnessing Frank's presence with Sarah, Micro panics. He suspects that his wife's life is in danger. He rushes home and waits outside. Observing a broken headlight on Sarah's car, Frank helps in fixing it. Instead of harming Micro's family, Frank provides assistance, allowing Micro to retreat to his hideout without exposing himself. Later that night, Frank shaves his beard and alters his gait to avoid detection through gait recognition technology, ensuring Micro remains unaware of his whereabouts. In a covert move, he then infiltrates Carson Wolf's residence, confronts him, and subjects him to a beating before securing him to a chair.
Mission begins in 10 seconds.
The hacker you put down.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Look, Lieberman was a traitor. He was selling secrets.
Way I see it, there's no way a guy like you kills a suspect in a case that big. No way. Whatever you do.
With the wrong person. With the stern warning, Frank directs Micro to meet him at a cemetery. Upon Micro's arrival at the designated location, he encounters Curtis instead of Frank. Curtis relays the message that Frank has canceled the meeting and issues a stern warning. If Micro continues pursuing Frank, Curtis will retaliate by going after Sarah. Disheartened, Micro returns to his hideout only to be surprised by Frank, who had hidden himself in Micro's car trunk. With disbelief, Micro witnesses Frank knocking him unconscious. Upon waking up, Micro begins recounting the harrowing story of the day he encountered Carson Wolf and his man. Sensing trouble, Micro instructed his family to stay in the car no matter what. As Wolf and his men closed in, Micro left the car, hoping to avoid a confrontation. However, Wolf caught up with him near the river. In a desperate attempt to clear his name, Micro shouted that the authorities had the wrong information. Micro's wife, Sarah, arrived at the scene only to witness a gun pointed at her husband. As Micro refused to surrender, Wolf shot him in the chest, causing him to plunge into the river. Miraculously, the bullets struck the cell phone in Micro's shirt pocket, saving his life. Micro proceeds to detail the sequence of events leading to his becoming a target for Homeland Security. In a revealing flashback, it is disclosed that Micro received a CD containing footage of Ahmad Zubair's murder. As an analyst, he felt compelled to assess the content. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Micro decided to take action and sent the incriminating material to Dinah Madani. This choice made him a target for Homeland Security, particularly for Carson Wolf, who was well aware of Ahmad Zubair's murder. Unexpectedly, a 3-minute countdown initiates. Micro discloses that it's a failsafe system. If the countdown reaches 0, all camera feeds will be broadcast to media outlets. To stop it, a code and a retinal scan are required. As Frank is standing close to him, Micro takes the opportunity to inject Frank with a sedative, causing him to lose consciousness. Upon waking and realizing that Micro hasn't executed him, Frank questions Micro's motives. In response, Micro attempts to persuade him that they should join forces in exposing the people behind Ahmad Zubair's death and the death of Frank's family. Frank starts recollecting the traumatic events in Afghanistan where they did a mission called Cerberus.
Do it. I have a family.
What's up, y'all? It's OJ. Cookie Run Tower of Adventures is here. And with Google Play Games, I can sync the game from my phone to my PC. I get the freedom to play on keyboard, mouse, or controller, and I get to play with my friends on the bigger screen. Download Google Play Games and play Cookie Run Tower of Adventures on PC.
Are you seeing this? Wait, what?
I am the new All Might.
He may have All Might's appearance, but that definitely isn't him. Using violence! Innocent people hurt! All Might would never act so carelessly!
Let's see if any among you are worthy of being dubbed protectors. It's no use!
I won't let you hurt her. Do you understand me? This loser messed with the wrong class!
Are you forgetting? We're heroes! Now, it's my turn!
It's our turn!
What are you doing? Getting the bullet. Looks to me like we're hiding evidence.
Let's go.
Frank's squad captured Ahmad Zubair, and a CIA agent known as Orange subjected him to brutal torture to extract information about his knowledge of their heroin operation. The conversations were conducted in Persian, making it evident that none of the squad members were aware of Zubair's innocence or Orange's involvement in drug trafficking. A few days later, Frank and his team receive a mission briefing from Schoonover and Orange. From the start, Frank harbors suspicions about the mission being a trap, but his concerns are dismissed. The mission quickly turns disastrous as Schoonover loses his arm and the team finds themselves under heavy fire.
Clear path for an evac. You out of your mind? What do you want to do, Bill? You gonna die here? Cover!
Did you kill the target?
Enraged at Orange for still caring about the target, Frank violently attacks Orange, leaving him blind in one eye. In the present day, Micro reveals to Frank that the operation he was part of was entirely off the books. It lacked any official records or approval from the United States Congress, rendering it illegal. Frank agrees to collaborate with Micro, laying down one condition. All the targets must be eliminated without exception or the opportunity for a trial. Micro agrees to Frank's terms. To execute their plan, Frank and Micro require weapons. Micro hacks into the NYPD system and discovers an illegal arms shipment arriving from Greece, with Turk as the buyer. To reach the location, they decide to ambush another gang.
If you scream, you die. That's it. You don't have to start. All I want to know is... Whoa, 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 whoa.
You aren't gonna. Hey, do not leave your DNA to the police, all right? Get in that van and let's go.
What about him?
Not our problem.
Frank and Micro depart the warehouse in 2 cars. Frank seizes Turk at gunpoint and demands information on the weapons location. However, Turk shatters his plan, revealing that the Greeks are selling the truck to another buyer who's willing to purchase the entire stock. All Turk can offer is a pink gun intended for a gangster's daughter. Disheartened, Frank returns to the hideout and starts cleaning Micro's pistol and the pink gun. Meanwhile, Sam briefs the team on their mission. They will be posing as criminal buyers to secure the weapons from the Greeks. Utilizing his hacking skills, Micro identifies the new location of the arms. As night falls, the mission starts with Dinah Madani leading. One car tails the truck while other officers, including Sam, wait at the intended destination. Suddenly, their communication systems are compromised and a song starts playing in the background. Unable to communicate through comms, Dinah calls Sam, instructing him to remain focused.
Drop the guns, turn around!
Stein, something's up. Something's happened to the truck. They were last at Pier 9. I'm heading there.
Mission begins in 60 seconds.
You head for the highway. I'll cut them off.
What did I do? In 30 seconds.
Stay out of my way, Madani.
He then departs from the scene, warning Dinah not to
go to your happy price line.
Mission begins in 10
interfere
seconds.
with his plans. Frank now possesses the guns, but he remains in the dark about Agent Orange's true identity. To uncover this information, he decides to approach Gunnar Henderson, the man who recorded Zubair's murder. Like Frank and Micro, Gunnar lives in solitude to avoid drawing attention from Agent Orange. Frank locates Gunnar in a forest, and as he explores the area, he is unexpectedly attacked by Gunnar with an arrow. After extracting the arrow, Frank takes cover behind a tree and repeatedly asserts that he is Frank, not an enemy. As Gunnar approaches, Frank surrenders, revealing how he lost his family due to the video Gunnar made. Recognizing his former colleague, Gunnar agrees to engage in a conversation with Frank. When questioned about Agent Orange's identity, Gunnar discloses that he has no information about the agent's real name. During their conversation, the duo hears the approach of a helicopter, and soon, soldiers arrive in the forest. Agent Orange is overseeing the mission, utilizing helmet cameras worn by each soldier. It becomes apparent that ever since becoming the deputy director of the CIA, he has been striving to erase his questionable past. To achieve this, he aims to eliminate everyone who witnessed Zubair's murder on his hands.
Just let
lay your weapons down and
Frank,
walk
I'm assuming
away.
that you and your buddy are the two hiding behind the big tree, yeah?
60
Come up behind you from either side of the tree.
Gentlemen.
Feel good.
You're gonna die!
I'm going to gut you like a Cornish game.
But both Frank and Gunnar suffer critical injuries.
I'm going to
As night
gut
falls,
you like
Frank
a
continues
Cornish
through the
game.
forest, supporting the injured
begins in
Gunnar.
30 seconds.
Ultimately, succumbing to his wounds, he collapses on the ground. Micro locates him, tends to his injuries, and transports him out of the forest in a van.
Thanks, Doc.
While Frank is unconscious, he dreams about a family dinner with his own and Micro's family.
Welcome home, Frank.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Mission begins in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
No. Wait. Just wait.
Upon waking, Micro tends to Frank's wounds. Micro reveals he's been monitoring radio chatter all day. Someone has been broadcasting Frank's name, referring to him as Raven, code word Frank during news. Although Micro is concerned about Billy knowing Frank is alive, Frank is confident that Billy is unaware. Regardless, Frank believes they shouldn't worry even if Billy does find out. It is because he sees Billy as a close friend, and he's convinced they'll go to great lengths to protect each other. Meanwhile, Dinah Madani pays a visit to the location where Gunnar met his demise. Micro had notified the local authorities before leaving, ensuring that Gunnar's body would be discovered. Although the bodies of the soldiers were removed by their sender, Dinah pieces together the events and suspects that Frank was present with Gunnar and likely made the call to the police. Her suspicions are confirmed when Sam informs her that the blood sample found in the area matches Frank's. Now, Dinah is certain that a death squad was dispatched by those who want to keep Mission Cerberus under wraps. It dawns on her that the situation is more dangerous than she initially thought, involving influential figures with the power to deploy a death squad. In her quest to uncover more about Frank, Dinah reaches out to Billy Russo, Frank's friend who owns a private military company. She shares with him the news that Frank is alive, but in critical condition. Since Billy is aware of the Afghanistan case Dinah is pursuing, she seeks Billy's assistance Familiar with the situation, Billy expressed a willingness to help find Frank if Dinah's claims are true. Following this, Billy pays a visit to Curtis, a mutual friend of his and Frank's, seeking information about Frank's whereabouts. Curtis pretends to know nothing, and Billy then reveals his intention to aid Frank by facilitating his escape from the country and providing him with a new identity for a peaceful life. After Billy departs, Curtis visits Frank and discloses the details of his encounter with Billy. Now believing that Frank should accept the offer, Curtis sees it as an opportunity for Frank to escape Agent Orange's looming threat and embrace a normal life. The next day, Frank and Billy reunite at the riverside, engaging in a conversation after a prolonged separation. Billy shares details about the confidence and recounts his meeting with Dinah, curious about what Frank knows she doesn't. In response, Frank divulges the entire narrative involving Agent Orange, Schoonover, and Bennett trafficking heroin from Afghanistan within the bodies of fallen soldiers. As a true friend, Billy advises Frank to let Dinah pursue her investigation, emphasizing that she shares the common goal of bringing the culprits to justice before parting ways. Billy extends an offer to help Frank leave the city by phone, saying he will wait for him that night. Mike provides his time in his hideout patiently waiting. Meanwhile, Frank extends his apologies to Sarah for missing the dinner invite. Their conversation takes a heartfelt turn as Sarah confides in Frank about the challenges she faces living without David, particularly the impact on her son's life. Frank offers words of comfort and motivation. Witnessing the scene from his hideout, Micro feels distressed for not being there for his family during this difficult period. As night falls, Billy anticipates Frank's arrival before Frank fails. Disheartened, Billy returns to his car and informs his associate that Frank went home. Surprisingly, the so-called friend turns out to be Agent Orange. It's revealed that Billy is in league with Agent Orange and wants to see Frank eliminated as soon as possible. The next day, Colonel Bennett learns that smuggling heroin and corpses finds his dinner interrupted when Frank pays an unexpected visit.
We are good.
Mission ends in 30 seconds.
Got it.
The control point has been captured.
Stand on the point!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Victory.
Get out of there.
Mission begins in 60 seconds.
Hands up! Kid, I'm not your enemy here.
Shall we?
I'm gonna go that way. You do what you gotta do. Get underneath right now! Do it! Try it.
The phone cloning is completed, allowing Micro to track Bennett's movements and communications.
Mission
The duo
begins in
already
30
knew
seconds.
Agent Orange would send his men to Bennett's house. So basically, they are the ones who outsmarted Agent Orange. The next day, Billy escorts Bennett to Agent Orange's safe house. Fuming with anger, Billy confronts his co-conspirators for using him as bait to lure out Frank. When questioned, Bennett reassures Agent Orange that he hasn't divulged any information to Frank. Realizing Bennett's life is at risk, Agent Orange decides it's time for Bennett to retire. A plan is set in motion to facilitate Bennett's relocation to another country, ensuring Frank won't be able to trust again. As part of the arrangement, Bennett is instructed to leave his phone behind at the safe house. Accompanied by Billy, he departs to start a new life abroad while Micro monitors the phone's location and extracts crucial information about the safe house. Meanwhile, Dinah is in her office examining the case when a sudden realization comes to her. She confronts her friend, expressing her beliefs as an officer above. Connecting the dots, she notes that after they discussed Gunnar in her office, he ended up dead the next day. Suspicious, she initiates a search for any surveillance devices in her workspace. Confirming her fears, Dinah discovers a hidden bug on one of her shelves. Despite finding the covert listening device, she opts not to remove it. On another front, Frank arrives outside the safe house, taking aim at Agent Orange.
Do that.
Though the attack is a failure, Frank learns the true identity of his target, William Rollins, the director of the CIA's covert operations. The next day, Micro's house experiences a sudden camera outage, prompting Frank to check in and ensure everything is fine. It appears that Sarah intentionally turned off the internet at her house as a lesson for Zach. Once Frank confirms the situation is under control, he prepares to leave. However, as they exchange a farewell embrace, things take an unexpected turn when Sarah attempts to kiss Frank. Caught off guard, Frank stops her advances, creating an awkward moment between them. Micro witnesses the unexpected kiss through the cameras, causing awkward tension between him and Frank. Despite the discomfort, he realizes it wasn't Frank's fault and harbors no grudge against him. Desperate to reunite with his wife, he suggests contacting Dinah Madani, who shares their goal of apprehending the same culprit. With the video evidence and an eyewitness, Dinah can arrest Agent Orange, which will allow Micro to return to his family. However, Frank firmly reminds Micro of their agreement. Agent Orange dies at the end. Micro loses control, saying that Frank's family is dead because of him, and now he wants everybody to die. Desperate, Micro attempts to contact Dinah, but is stopped by Frank, who intervenes and renders him unconscious. Meanwhile, Dinah and Sam hatch a plan to expose the individuals behind the office building. They devise a fake tactical plan for a fake that hides involvement. Obviously, Frank won't be there, but their plan will rule out those responsible for the crime. As anticipated, Billy falls for the trap and meets Agent Orange to discuss their next move. The decision is made to eliminate Frank on the spot. To execute the job, Billy recruits former contractors from his company. enticing them with the promise of a substantial sum in exchange for successfully carrying out the murder. As predicted by Dinah, Billy and his team fall right into the trap. A fierce shootout erupts between Homeland Security and Billy's crew, with Dinah and Sam also present to apprehend those responsible for the office bug.
Alert security! Drop your weapons!
Quite a mess.
Mission begins in 60 seconds.
You're gonna be okay.
Before Dinah arrives, Billy manages to escape, leaving Sam on the floor with his throat slit. On the other hand, we are shown the story of Lewis Wilson, a United States Army veteran grappling with the challenges of reintegrating into civilian life. Upon his return to the United States, he confronted the devastating effects of post-traumatic stress disorder. Struggling with his unstable mental state, he even attempted to harm his own father. In a desperate moment, he tried to take his own life but was unsuccessful coping with his trauma. He chose to sleep in a foxhole he dug in his yard rather than his bed. Seeking a way to channel his military home skills, he enlisted with Billy's private military group, Anvil. However, his expectations of securing a position with Anvil were dashed when Billy, aware of his mental struggles, opted not to recruit him. Responding to his father's request, Lewis reluctantly started attending group therapy sessions for military veterans organized by Curtis. During the sessions, he encountered O'Connor, who presented himself as a Vietnam War veteran. However, O'Connor's suicide was to promote extreme culture. Intrigued by O'Connor's views, Lewis, who already felt rejected by his country, found resonance in the belief that the rules no longer apply and the nation had forsaken the army for a change. Inspired to make a stand, Lewis joined O'Connor in a protest outside the Bronx County Courthouse. The protest centered around a teacher facing charges for entering his classroom with a revolver. Before long, a police officer named Fahy approached Lewis and O'Connor, questioning their presence and inquiring if they were engaging in a protest. Lewis responded that they were merely distributing pamphlets, asserting it was within their legal rights. When O'Connor gave his explanation for being there, Fahy interpreted it as evidence of a protest and insisted they leave. However, Lewis stood his ground, maintaining that they weren't obstructing anyone from entering the courthouse. He watched as O'Connor left him, and Fahy then shoved him to the ground and arrested him. Lewis delved into O'Connor's military records, discovering that O'Connor never served in the Vietnam War. He confronted O'Connor with the evidence, but the liar denied the accusations, suggesting someone might have tampered with the information. When Lewis refused to accept his story, O'Connor demanded he leave his house, sparking a violent altercation between the two. Faced with the overwhelming events that had unfolded, he resolved to take matters into his own hands. He went to a hardware store and purchased materials to craft homemade bombs. With all preparations in place, Lewis sets off numerous explosives across New York City, targeting a field office, a police station, and the federal courthouse. Amidst the chaos, he sends a letter to Frank's lawyer, Karen. He seeks Karen's help in the letter, believing she can understand his perspective. According to his manifesto, he's defending the liberties of the American people against a government he sees as trying to strip away those rights. As a call to arms, he insists that Karen publish his remarks, otherwise he will target the New York Bulletin building next time. Disagreeing with his views, Karen opts to address him in an editorial, expressing her disgust at his beliefs. Meanwhile, Frank discovers the bombings through the news and reads Karen's response to Lewis. Concerned for Karen's safety, he fears her life may be in danger. On the other side, Karen participates in a radio program with Senator Stan Ori to condemn Lewis's actions. Expressing his disappointment, he asks Karen why she spoke negatively about him. In response, Karen explains that she detests everything he has done. While listening to Karen condemn his actions, Lewis declares that she and Ori are on the wrong side of the war. He ends the call. Realizing that Karen's life is in jeopardy, Frank instructs Micro to track down Lewis. Micro is puzzled about why Frank is focusing on this case instead of their own. Frank then reveals that Karen is like his family and he can't bear to lose her. Aware that Lewis poses a threat to Karen, Frank loses control and demands that Micro locate Lewis as soon as possible. In the meantime, Curtis heads to O'Connor's house as he hasn't heard from him in days. Upon arrival, he discovers the door locked and a smell coming from inside. Upon entering, he stumbles upon O'Connor's lifeless body on a sofa, right where Lewis had left him. Lewis suddenly appears and launches an attack.
It's not too late to do the right thing.
I'm doing the right thing.
Can't leave here.
What's up, y'all? It's OJ. Cookie Run Tower Adventures is finally here. I love being able to play on my phone, tablet, and officially on PC thanks to Google Play Games. You've got freedom to play your way on keyboard, mouse, or controller. Oh, this game is great on PC. The 3D graphics are so nice on here. Plus, you can switch between your favorite cookies. You know I have to use one cookie. And since this game is optimized for PC, you're in for an epic style of adventure. Play Cookie Run Tower Adventures on Google Play Games.
Expresses admiration for Frank's actions and desires to take matters into his own hands, similar to Frank. He informs Frank that he's called the cops but doesn't want Frank to die and just remember his reality. Frank agrees, and in return, Lewis provides the information on his wires to confuse Frank. As the police arrive, Frank takes quick action to hurl the stone, incapacitating one officer and quickly pursuing them. Hideout, Frank discovers that his identity has been exposed by the entire United States due to the police gas network. Now, he's being labeled a terrorist and held responsible for all the violence. The following day, while Karen interviews Ori, an explosion at the door sends them both flying to the floor. Smoke fills the room as Lewis and Frank start taking down the guards. Despite being injured, Ori manages to get up, seize his pistol, and fire at Lewis while making his escape. Karen is left alone with Lewis. This is the account Senator Ori provides to Detective Sergeant West home. However, Karen refutes his claims, stating it's not what actually transpired. She then recounts the actual events that unfolded. Lewis enters the room wielding a pistol, ruthlessly shooting down everyone. Senator Ori attempted to flee, but Lewis apprehended him in gunfight. Just as Lewis was about to execute them both, Frank suddenly appeared, leaping in front of Karen to take the shot. But Lewis revealed he was holding a bomb with a single button in his hand capable of detonating it. Upon reaching the corridor, Frank and the security guards are compelled to surrender while Lewis takes the elevator. A skirmish ensues between Frank and the security personnel. The other half of the story is narrated by Dinah. A day earlier, she discovered that the individuals who attempted to kill Frank on the day of Sam's death were all linked to Billy's company at some point. Suspecting Billy of possibly installing the bug in her office, she confronted him to inquire about his intentions. Billy acknowledged the identity of the deceased man, but asserted that they were all former employees of his company, implying the company no longer had any association with him. As Billy denied the accusations, the alarm rang due to the ongoing attack. Everyone suspected Frank as the culprit, but Dinah was convinced of his innocence. She took the stairs and eventually found Frank. She suggested they team up to expose Agent Orange, but Frank insisted on dealing with him himself. Amid their conversation, Frank gets shot by his best friend, Billy.
5, 4, 3, 2,
1. Meanwhile, Lewis had taken Karen to the kitchen where he threatened to detonate the bomb. Frank soon joined him, prompting Lewis to use Karen as a hostage.
You told me to pull that white wire. You did the right thing, kid. Give up. Over and over and over again. Karen, get out of here. Go like a soldier.
On the other side, a police officer arrives at Sarah's house in response to a call claiming information about Frank. It turns out that, after seeing Frank's identity on the news, called the cops to report his frequent visits. When questioned, Sarah downplays it as a possible misunderstanding. When the officer informs Sarah that they need to go to the police station, she senses something is wrong, suspecting trouble. She instructs Zach to run, and at that moment, the officer reveals his true intentions as he chases after the mother and son. Unaware of the events unfolding in his house, Micro tunes into the news, where Billy portrays Frank as a terrorist. When Frank observes signs of a struggle in Micro's house, they review the footage and discover the abduction of Sarah and Zach. In a sudden realization, Frank understands that their hideout's location is now compromised since Sarah has his number, making it easier for Billy to track them down. Anticipating the imminent showdown, Frank meticulously prepares. He strategically places guns in various locations, loads his weapons, dons a bulletproof jacket, and awaits the arrival of the enemy.
Mission begins in 30 seconds. Mission begins in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Neutralizing all the mercenaries, Frank uses their phones to contact Billy. Billy informs him that Sarah and Zach are in their custody and proposes a deal. If Frank and Micro want to free them, they must surrender. The exchange is set to take place the next day. Later, Frank joins Dinah, Micro, and Leo, who has now reunited with her father after successfully evading capture by the cops. Having learned that Micro allowed Dinah in, Frank decides to place his trust in her. The next day, the exchange takes place. Zach and Sarah are compelled to wear fuel containers that have been cut and are leaking. Sarah walks hesitantly towards Frank and Micro, struggling to believe her husband is alive. Simultaneously, Frank maintains contact with Billy, who has a sniper aimed at him, leaving no room for double crossing. Billy's men ignite the fuel, prompting Micro to remove his jacket and use it to extinguish the flames. Homeland Security arrives at the location, but before they can intervene, Frank is caught and knocked unconscious. Tragically, Micro becomes a victim of a bullet from Homeland Security. As he succumbs to death, Sarah screams in pain, covering her son's eyes to spare him from witnessing his father's brutal end. The traumatic loss of her husband is relived once again. Micro's body is transported to the Homeland Security building, where it is revealed that he is still alive. It turns out his survival was part of their orchestrated plan. Frank was supposed to assist Dinah in apprehending the culprits, but he went unconscious, disrupting their strategy. It appears he might have done it intentionally to prevent the criminals from being arrested. He wanted to ensure they face his own form of justice, which is death. Despite the setback, Micro is eventually reunited with his family, sharing a heartfelt embrace. On the other side, Billy has brought Frank to his hideout, where Agent Orange has joined them. Restrained to a chair, Frank asserts that he will eliminate all of them. A computer specialist is summoned to erase everything from Micro's computer. Meanwhile, Micro discloses Frank's true plan to Dinah. He reveals that Frank is driven by the desire to eliminate these individuals, and they had an agreement. Micro promised to give Frank the chance to kill him, anticipating that Billy would take Frank over Frank. He knew they needed Frank to access the computer with the readiness stand since Micro was no longer there. Utilizing Dinah's computer, Micro gains access to the cameras at the hideout. They witness Frank enduring a brutal beating from Agent Orange. Micro explains that it was all part of Frank's strategy. Micro urges Dinah to assist Frank.
Fear, Frank.
This doesn't serve me.
Billy, don't get confused. Men like me make the plans. Men like you shed the blood. Adrenaline.
You're wrong. You lie.
Mission begins in 30 seconds.
Damn, Frankie. I love to watch you work.
Person was injured but armed. Search every area.
Frank survives, but Billy manages to escape. After tending to his wounds, Billy heads to his office to retrieve money and a passport. While Homeland Security raids his office, he attacks them from behind. He eliminates the remaining team members and escapes the building. As he departs, he presses a button that triggers a bomb in his office, causing a powerful explosion. Frank's life is saved thanks to the surgical skills of Dinah's father. In gratitude, Micro gives Frank money acquired from the enemy's accounts. Micro and Dinah counsel Frank to leave the country and seek a peaceful life elsewhere. On that same day, as Curtis sleeps, an unwelcome visitor arrives at his house. Frank is in the room. It turns out to be his best friend, Billy, seeking information on Frank's whereabouts. When Curtis admits to knowing that Frank is alive, Billy is hurt, unable to reconcile the betrayal from one friend trying to kill him and another lying to him all the time. Amidst their conversation, a bullet pierces the building, narrowly missing Billy. In retaliation for the betrayal, Billy shoots at Curtis, injuring his shoulder. As it unfolds, Frank is positioned on the adjacent building, patiently awaiting Billy to appear in the window so he can exact his revenge. Billy attempts to rise, but the moment his knife becomes visible to Frank, a shot is fired, forcing him to remain where he is. Frank contacts Curtis and instructs him to put Billy on the ground. When Billy takes the phone, Frank warns him not to harm Curtis. A decision is made to meet at their usual gathering place, the park where they used to spend time together as a family. Frank decides to let Billy go, allowing him to arrive at the park where he takes two employees hostage. As Frank approaches the location, he discovers two teenagers tied to the horses of the running airstars, initially distracting Billy by firing in the opposite direction. Frank enters the park from another angle and launches him. However, he is granted freedom and a new identity in exchange for not exposing the case. On the other hand, Billy has endured numerous rounds of surgery and is face now concealed by multiple layers of trauma. The doctors are unsure if he will suffer brain damage or even memory loss, and this is where the season ends. If you enjoyed this recap, then please subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. Turn on the notification bell and share the video for more awesome movie details. Thank you for watching.
Relaxing in the bar and enjoying a live band performance, attempting to savor the moments. He notices a guy named Johnny disturbing a bar girl named Beth Quinn. Johnny invites Beth for a drink, but she refuses. Frank steps in to defend Beth, and they kick Johnny out of the bar. Impressed by Frank's actions, Beth invites him to her place, and Frank accepts. The scene shifts to Chicago, introducing John Pilgrim, a mysterious and menacing man. He has an injured man named Sergei Khrushchevsky tied to a chair, interrogating him about his connections to the Russian mafia. During the interrogation, Sergei's phone rings. It's Amy Bendix, who informs Sergei about the brutal murder of their group. John listens in on the conversation as Amy tells Sergei her current location and asks for photos in exchange for money. After the call, John kills Sergei and orders his men to find Amy. Back at Beth's place, she opens up to Frank about her past, her background, and her son. Frank spends the night with Beth and reveals his true identity to her. The next morning, she drops Frank off at his motel, asking him to stay longer because she enjoys his company. That night, Frank returns to the bar to meet her. Suddenly, John Pilgrim's goons enter the bar. Sensing danger, Amy heads to the washroom and tries to escape through a window, but is captured and beaten by the goons. Frank, who is trying to enjoy a quiet night at the bar, notices something is wrong. He sees a group of men acting suspiciously. As he heads towards the back of the bar, one of the men tries to stop him.
3, 2, 1.
Terrified, asks Frank for help. The fight spills into the main bar area. More attackers enter and a big fight breaks out. Frank fights them off using his combat skills, throwing punches and kicks, and using objects like bar stools and bottles to defend himself and Amy.
What's the problem, man?
With the attackers taken care of, Frank quickly tends to Beth's wound and decides to get her to the hospital. He helps Beth into his car and Amy gets in as well. On their way to the hospital, they are ambushed by more of John Pilgrim's goons.
Now what?
Finally, he reaches the hospital. He carries Beth inside, urgently calling for medical help. The hospital staff takes Beth in for treatment, and Frank ensures Amy is safe. John Pilgrim arrives at the bar lounge with a corrupt police officer, Ferreira. They find Frank's wedding ring, and Ferreira helps cover up the situation. Reviewing the camera footage, John is impressed by Frank's fighting skills. He orders his men to find Frank and Amy at any cost. In New York, Billy Russo is in a hospital bed. His face is covered with a mask, and he is in a coma. Dinah Madani, a former Homeland Security agent, visits him regularly. She sits by his bed, waiting eagerly for him to wake up. She hopes to get answers and confront him about his past actions. As soon as Dinah leaves the hospital room, Billy begins to stir and comes out of his coma, but it is clear he is disoriented. Meanwhile, in the small town of Larksville, Frank reaches Amy's hideout. He asks her to help remove a bullet lodged in his back. In the small, dimly lit bathroom, Amy nervously helps Frank. She uses a pair of tweezers to carefully extract the bullet from his back. Frank grimaces in pain but stays strong, guiding her through the process. After the bullet is removed, Frank is visibly exhausted. He wants to rest and regain his strength. However, he is worried that Amy might try to run away while he sleeps. To prevent this, he decides to take a drastic measure. He leads Amy back to the main room of the motel and ties her to the bed to make sure she doesn't escape.
What are you doing? You're gonna try and get some sleep? Yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna wake you up. Okay? No.
Dinah returns to the hospital to check on Billy Russo. She walks down the hallway with a determined look on her face and enters Billy's room. To her surprise, she finds Billy awake and sitting up in bed. The doctor, noticing Dinah's distress, steps into the room. Dinah turns to him angrily, saying that he is faking all of this because he doesn't want to face the charges. The doctor remains calm and explains that Billy has suffered severe head injuries. The trauma has caused significant memory loss, and this isn't something he can fake, and his brain needs time to heal. Despite the doctor's explanation, Dinah is still unconvinced, explaining to the doctor that she doesn't know him like Dinah because he's manipulative, and this all could be an act. But the doctor stands firm, repeating that Billy's condition is genuine and that he needs proper care and time to recover. Dinah leaves the room, her mind racing with doubt and anger. As she walks away, Billy remains in bed looking lost and broken, leaving viewers to wonder about his true state of mind. Beth lies in a hospital bed recovering from her gunshot wound. She looks weak and vulnerable, surrounded by medical equipment, and suddenly, John Pilgrim enters the hospital room. He is a tall, imposing figure with a stern expression. Beth's eyes widen in fear as she recognizes him. John notices the get well cards from Beth's son. His eyes narrow as he picks one up, his gaze cold and threatening.
I really need the name of the man at the bar. He was loyal to you. He risked his life to save yours. God's great because of that.
Mission ends
So that
in
you can
60
be a good
seconds.
mother to Rex. Still reaches of food.
Our control point captured.
Shadow can end here. I can see it in the back. The vow before God is not to be taken lightly.
Alert. The control point is being captured.
With his mission accomplished, John turns and leaves the hospital room. Beth watches him leave, her heart heavy with fear for her son. She knows that revealing Frank's identity may have put him in even greater danger, but she has no choice. Frank interrogates Amy, who claims she's just a student and doesn't know why the goons are after her. He doesn't buy her story and presses her for the truth, but Amy holds her ground. Realizing they aren't safe, he books the adjacent motel room and creates a hidden passage between the two rooms. Billy undergoes therapy, and the doctor discovers his nightmares are haunted by a skull. The therapist listens intently, taking notes as Billy shares his experiences. She realizes that the skull in his nightmares is a powerful symbol, representing his inner turmoil and the darkness that haunts him. These nightmares hint at his deep psychological trauma. As the therapy session comes to an end, Billy is left with a sense of unease. The nightmares continue to haunt him, reminding him of the pain and suffering he has endured. Dinah sits at a table in a bustling restaurant waiting for Rafael Hernandez. She looks tense, knowing their conversation won't be easy. Rafael arrives, his expression stern and his tone sharp. He is visibly angry about something as he sits down across from Dinah. Without wasting any time, Rafael confronts her about her frequent visits to Billy Russo in the hospital. He demands to know why she's been spending so much time with him, and he warns her to stay away from Billy. As a senior official within Homeland Security, Raphael is concerned about maintaining the integrity of the department's investigations. Angered by Raphael's attitude, Dinah stands up abruptly, her frustration evident. She refuses to back down, but she knows there's no reasoning with Raphael. Frank, ever vigilant, notices a suspicious car parked outside the motel where he and Amy are staying. His instincts tell him trouble is approaching. As Frank watches, he sees the shadows of Amy and himself cast on the motel wall. The goons spot the shadows, realizing they've found their targets.
Teleporter coming right up.
You ready to talk?
Hands behind your head.
Hands behind your head!
The authorities arrive, catching them all in the middle of the chaos. At the police station, Amy cleverly claims that Frank kidnapped her, trying to shift the blame and protect herself. However, the officers are skeptical of her story, sensing that there's more to the situation than meets the eye. Meanwhile, a hacker informs John of the arrests, alerting him to the fact that Frank and Amy are in police custody. John's interest is aroused, and he starts to mobilize his forces. Realizing they're in serious trouble, Frank calls Dinah, hoping for her assistance. But Dinah, still cautious of Frank's motives, refuses to get involved, leaving Frank and Amy to fend for themselves.
Frank Jordan is one part of my life. Do not call this number again.
As the police officer Roy Hardin interrogates Frank, he remains calm but assertive. He tries to convince them that releasing them would be in everyone's best interest, emphasizing the danger posed by their stalkers outside the police station. And in that moment, John arrives with a determined look, ready to complete his mission and take out his targets. As he sits there, his mind drifts back to earlier days. He remembers the challenging times when his wife was very sick. The medical bills were overwhelming, and he struggled to find a way to pay for her treatment. It was during this desperate period that Anderson Schultz and his wife, Eliza Schultz, came into their lives. They offered to cover all the medical expenses, providing the financial support that John and his wife desperately needed. In return for their generosity, Anderson asked John to do something very significant. This favor was not a simple task, but something that would require John to use his particular set of skills and take on dangerous responsibilities. The police officer Roy is suspicious of Amy's story. He has found fake IDs and connections to various groups, making him doubt her claims. Amy insists she is a victim and doesn't know why the goons are after her. Roy confronts Amy in the interrogation room. He shows her the fake IDs and connections he's found. Amy sticks to her story, saying she has no idea what's happening and that she is just a victim. Unsatisfied, Roy goes to Olin's cell. He tells Olin he knows about her plans and demands answers. Olin warns Roy to let her go or face serious consequences. She says her leaders will strike back if she isn't released. Frank supports Olin's warning. He tells Roy that Olin's group is very dangerous and will kill everyone in the station if they don't release her. Roy feels the pressure. He wants to do his job and catch the criminals, but he also wants to keep everyone safe. He orders more security around the station and thinks about what to do next. In a New York hospital, Dr. Dumont is conducting a therapy session with Billy. He is very upset because his nightmares are disturbing him. As they discuss his sleep issues, Billy suddenly becomes angry and shouts at the doctor. Hearing the commotion, guards rush in. Desperate, Billy insists that the doctor help him escape the hospital. She agrees, but warns Billy about his health condition. Ignoring the warning, he hands his mask to her and escapes. John and Ferreira pull up at the police station. Ferreira demands that Roy hands over Olin, Frank, and Amy, but Roy stands firm and refuses. John steps in, warning Roy to brace himself for what's coming. He makes it clear that there will be consequences if Roy doesn't comply with their demands.
Did you take an oath, Joe? Did you take an oath?
Poor guy. I'm not about to break it.
Hosea 8, verse 7. He that sows the wind shall reap the whirlwind.
After their departure, John orders his men to cut the power supply to the police station, plunging it into darkness. The sudden loss of power adds to the tension as Roy and his officers prepare for a forthcoming attack. Dinah visits the hospital to see Billy. She meets Dumont, who accuses her of helping Billy escape by faking his mental condition. Dumont insists that Billy is genuinely mentally unstable. Dinah remains unconvinced and suspects Dumont of aiding Billy's escape. While Dinah is questioning her, Detective Brett Mahoney arrives and tells her that the Homeland Security Department agreed to hand over Billy Russo's case to the police. He advises Dinah to stay away from the matter, saying she is not allowed to be involved. After leaving the room, Dinah decides to approach Frank to help solve the Billy Russo case. Roy Harden is very tense about the situation at the police station. He asks Frank to explain everything clearly. Frank tells him the whole story and convinces Roy to let him go, warning that John Pilgrim will not spare anyone. Deputy Police Officer Ken Ogden suggests he go out and reach the state police to inform them about the situation since their power supply is cut off and they can't contact anyone. Roy agrees and allows Ken to leave. However, as soon as Ken tries to exit, John shoots him in the chest. Roy Harden quickly brings Ken back into the police station. Roy finds himself in a tense confrontation with John. Once more, he demands that Roy hands over the 3 prisoners. Despite the pressure, Roy stands his ground, refusing to comply with John's demands. After the confrontation, Roy returns to the police station, his mind racing with the implications of his encounter with John. He immediately takes charge, instructing his team to provide medical treatment to Ken, who was injured during the earlier dispute. Realizing the danger, Roy quickly gets his team ready for a possible attack. He gathers his officers and makes sure they're all prepared to protect the station from whatever John might do. The mood is tense as everyone gets ready for what might happen next.
Lost evidence at the boat! Need to cover the back door! Come on!
Mission ends in 10 seconds. What are you doing? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
As tension reaches its peak, John, angered by Olin's interference, makes a drastic decision to eliminate her. With a cold determination, he swiftly ends her life, removing the obstacle to his mission. With a serious determination, John tells his men to set the station on fire to destroy all evidence and stop anyone from stopping them. But right when the fire starts, Frank joins the fight. Frank faces the goons with strong determination. He fights them with careful and exact moves, taking them down one by one with skill and speed.
Turns out he's like the devil or death or something.
Long as he's on our side.